All right, so if you've been following the news at all, you've seen the headlines, right? China's economy, this once unstoppable force, looks like it's in some serious trouble. But is that the whole story? Let's dig in and figure out what's really going on here.
Okay, so the most obvious sign, the one you just can't miss, is this huge property crisis. I mean, we've all seen those pictures of ghost cities and heard about giants like Evergrande basically on life support. And look, this isn't just a small bump in the road. We're talking about a massive shakeup of an entire industry that used to fuel so much of their growth.
And it goes beyond that. It's not just real estate. Across the board, corporate sales have pretty much hit a wall. And that's a big deal. Because, well, when companies can't sell stuff, they stop spending, they stop hiring. It's a classic warning sign that the whole engine is losing steam.
Then on top of all that, you've got prices actually falling. Now you might think, hey, cheaper stuff, that's great. But in economics, it's often a huge red flag for something called deflation. And that's really dangerous. It means people aren't buying enough, and that can drag the whole economy down.
So you put all this together, the property crisis, the weak sales, the falling prices, and it all leads to this one massive question that just about everyone is asking. Is the Chinese economic miracle over? I mean, it seems like a pretty open and shut case, right? But what if we're all looking at this completely the wrong way?
This is where things get really interesting. Chew on this idea for a second. What appears as stagnation to one system may look like consolidation to another. In other words, what if what looks like a total collapse from the outside is actually a planned demolition, a deliberate, strategic move?
And that brings us to this key counter-argument. The idea that this whole slowdown isn't some accident. It's what's being called a willing price. Basically, Beijing is choosing to take this economic hit right now to deal with some really deep, gnarly problems. You know, the mountains of debt and those crazy property bubbles that were threatening to blow up the whole system down the line. And we need to be clear, this isn't just about patching up a few holes in the economy. This is way bigger. It's about completely redefining what growth even means for China. They're throwing out the old playbook, the one that was all about growth at any cost.
And you can see that pivot right here. On the one hand, you had the old high-speed growth model. That was all about hitting those big GDP numbers, building fast, and taking on tons of debt to do it. But now, they're shifting to what they call high-quality development. The focus is totally different. It's on control, stability, becoming self-reliant, and crucially, cutting down on those big systemic risks. It's a huge trade-off, really. They're giving up that breakneck speed for what they hope will be long-term stability.
So if you want the best example of this new strategy in the real world, look no further than the semiconductor race. I mean, we're talking about computer chips. For China, this isn't just about business. It's become a matter of national security, of technological independence.
And you know, this isn't some new idea they just came up with. This has been in the works for a while. Their Made in China 2025 plan, which came out years ago, already set this wild goal of 70% self-sufficiency. But then, the US and its allies brought in these tight export controls, and that just threw gasoline on the fire. It basically forced their hand and put this whole mission into overdrive. So how are they paying for all this? Well, with something they call the Big Fund. It's this massive state-backed investment fund, and with each new version, it just gets bigger and smarter. Big Fund number 1 was about just getting the basic manufacturing down. The second one got more strategic, targeting weak spots in their supply chain. And this latest one, wow, it's a staggering $47.5 billion, and it's aimed right at the top shelf, the super advanced equipment you need to make chips, especially for AI. This is such a clever part of the strategy. While everyone in the West is obsessed with making the tiniest, fastest, most cutting-edge chips, China is just flooding the zone on what are called mature node chips. Now, these aren't the sexiest chips, but they're the workhorses. They're in your car, your microwave, pretty much everything. The plan seems to be dominate this huge part of the market, become self-sufficient there, and then use that massive scale as a weapon. And the amount of money we're talking about, it's honestly hard to wrap your head around. Since 2014, the government has pumped in more than $150 billion. That is an absolutely massive sum of money dedicated to just one industry. Okay, so this isn't just the story about China's internal economy. Not at all. This whole pivot is designed to send huge ripples across the entire globe. The goal is to reshape global supply chains and give them a whole new kind of economic power. And they're being super methodical about it. They're targeting specific areas where they can build up this influence. We're talking about everything from creating their own chip designs so they don't have to rely on Western IP, to cornering the market on certain materials, and, like we said, using that dominance in mature chips as a lever. And this is where the big risk comes in for everyone else. Think about it. If China floods the global market with these super cheap mature node chips, what happens? It could basically push companies in other countries out of business, making the whole world dependent on China for these essential components. It's a classic strategy, really. Gain control of a key market, and then you're the one calling the shots.
All right, let's pull all these threads together. What we're seeing isn't a simple story. It's not just China's collapsing, and it's not just China's in total control. It's something much more complex. It's a massive, high-stakes gamble. You could call it a grand bargain, sacrificing the present for a very different kind of future.
The logic, if this is right, kind of goes like this, in 4 steps. Step 1, accept the short-term pain. Yeah, growth is going to slow down, and that's okay. Step 2, use this slowdown to fix the big scary problems, the debt, the property speculation. Step 3, go all in on breaking that dependence on foreign technology, especially in critical areas like chips. And step 4, the endgame. Emerge on the other side with an economy that is way more stable, much more controlled, and a lot less susceptible to pressure from the outside world.
And if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. We make a huge mistake if we try to judge China by the rules of the old game. Because they're not playing that game anymore. They are trying to change the game itself.
So that leaves us with one last big question. The economic pain we're seeing is real, no doubt about it, but maybe it's just a side effect of a much, much deeper change. So the real question we should be asking isn't, is China's economy collapsing? It's, what kind of power is China trying to build? And maybe more importantly, is the rest of the world ready for whatever the answer is?